Hello, my name is Janice Williamson, and I am teaching a community class that is on the sixth chakra, which is Ajna or Ajna, and it is according to uh, Swami Vishnu Devananda in the Complete Illustrated Book of Yoga. It is that chakra which is between the eyebrows, and it is what the energy, the Kundalini, when it's rising up the body from the first chakra, Manipura, Anahata, Vishuddha, and Anya. Only when the power reaches consciously the Agnya center in between the eyebrows, maybe it be said that the practitioner has obtained success in controlling and manipulating the Kundalini Shakti, that energy, and that it will appear like a brilliant flash of light. Now, Swami Vishnu Devananda counsels us that one has to work hard for several years and follow a method and contemplation that can be taught. Nowadays, we can see everywhere pseudo-yoga teachers who proclaim on public platforms that they can awaken Kundalini with their yogic powers if students can afford to pay a large amount of money. So Swami Vishnu Devananda warns in this book that we should be aware of these teachers, be aware of these teachers, and that it takes a long, arduous practice to accomplish this. So that is the chakra we're talking about, the sixth chakra, which is right between the eyebrows in that third eye. And we're going to start our exploration of the chakra. We're going to be writing, and we're going to be doing some practices, some breathing practices, and some asanas, some postures that are exploring this. I should say I'm wearing this owl t-shirt because this is the animal that is connected with it. And my puppy dog, Ruby, Coyote, seems to be very keen. I may have to put her somewhere else if she gets too excited. So this chakra, we're just going to do an exercise that requires one to take off your glasses. And we're just going to rub our fingers together. And you can rub your fingers together while you, and then you can place your hands on the palms of your hands on your eyes and feel the heat that is gently massaging your eyes. Eyesight is connected with this third eye, which is, of course, related to the idea of intuition. And clarity of vision is one of the aspects of this chakra. And we're just breathing easily here and just feeling what it is to attend to our eyes. And just inhale and exhale. Inhale and exhale. So let's open out our hands. Now, we're going to do another quite a wonderful pose that I really love. And it's quite a lot of fun too. And it generates laughter sometimes. But I think it's, so let's try, this is just a precursor to the pose we're going to do. But let's try just doing some neck movements that are also about developing our eyes. And eye exercises are not taught in many yoga classes, but in India they are often part of the yogic asana class. So here's just drop your chin to your chest, and then look between your eyebrows at your third eye, and then lift your chin up and look at your nose. So we'll exhale and look at our eyebrow, between our eyebrows. And we'll inhale and we'll look at our nose. And exhale and look at our eyebrows. And inhale and look at our nose. Exhale and inhale. Good. All right, now let's just stand, and we're going to move into goddess pose, which is a lovely pose. It's a kind of a bouncy pose. Let's see if I can lift this up so you can see me. So we're just standing with our feet wide apart, and we are going to bend our legs, our knees, and feel ourselves, we can actually just bounce a little bit up and down. Feel ourselves in the center of our body. And we can also feel that we are aligning our xiphoid process, which is that little spear-headed bone at the bottom of our sternum, and our pelvis. So it might mean that you draw your pelvis a bit forward so that we're actually on a kind of plane here. We're not. So here we are in goddess pose, and we will lift our arms up. And then we're going to perform a lion face, which is just, I'm going to take my glasses off. You don't have to take your glasses off, but it's more fun to take your glasses off. And we're just going to stick our tongue out, exhale, and cross our eyes and look at that space between our eyebrows. So here we go. So we're going to inhale and then exhale, sticking our tongue out and exhaling very loudly. And then we'll come up and we'll do it again. Come up and we'll do it again. Up and exhale. Inhale. Good. All right. So that should loosen us up a little bit, at least psychologically. And our breath is now flowing. And we'll just sit for a moment and get your pen and piece of paper. And the first thing I want us to address, and you can, in these writing periods, whenever I teach a writing workshop, I always say, I'm going to give you prompts or questions or whatever to explore. But if you start writing and you find that completely uninteresting, then write about something you're interested in. Because the writing time is quite precious, and it's simply attending to whatever it is that is flowing from you. And so you do you. You don't have to attend to these questions. But since we are looking at the sixth chakra and at intuition, I thought I would just think about what is intuition. And I was talking with one of my teachers earlier today and another friend of mine about intuition. And my friends, I was saying, intuition is often seen as an opposition to intellect. Intellect, we reason things out, and intuition, somehow we just apprehend this force of insight. So she said, well, that she thinks actually that it's some combination, that it is about that our intuition comes from often from our experience and from the knowledge we've gained through our life and through our experiences. And so it's not devoid of intellect, it's informed by how we have come to certain experiences, how we've thought about certain experiences, but it's a different way of processing. Um, uh, Processing life. And anyway, so I thought that was quite an interesting idea. So, and then my teacher Pat and I were talking, and she said she sees it as a gut feeling, that it's really what you experience in your gut, and that made me think about experiences I had in my life where I acted from my gut, and uh, uh, and where I just knew something was right for me, even though others, my parents or others around me whom I respected, might have thought that uh, it was not such a good idea. And then I went ahead and did it, and it had consequences which were good or bad. But the sort of notion of acting from intuition or acting from your gut. I want just ask you: have you made life decisions based on your gut feelings, and how did that work out, for good or bad? And do you think that's a good way to sort of guide your life? So that's my question for you about intuition, the intuitive life. So what we're thinking about here is, um, how is it that we develop insight, and uh, and how is it that we come to know things? How is it that we become self-aware? All right, so let's just write about that. About how have we come to any life decisions based on our gut, and how did that work out? And how do we see retrospectively that as an intuitive response to life? I guess that's a big question. Anyway, any part of that you can take out. I'm going to write a little bit, so you go right ahead. I have my little book that I got in Oaxaca. I was traveling with a friend from Oaxaca. It has a little revolutionary woman on it. So it always makes me feel I should be bold in my life and in my reflections. So there you go. All right, I'll just invite you to stop writing now. Now, if you want to continue writing, you can write through the whole session if you like. Maybe this is something that really you want to explore or you're on a roll, so keep writing if you like. Or you could take this up after the class if you like. Or if you're watching the recording, you could just pause it and keep writing and then start it again. I'm just going to say that when I first thought of this, I realized that when I was 45, I was very, very ill off and on for a couple of years. And I thought I would have to quit my job. And, I was really very ill. Finally, I was cured through various surgeries and things. And then I remember the first thing I wanted to do was to adopt. And at that time, I was 47. I was single. I was completely obsessed about my work. I was a teacher and a writer, and I loved it. I was completely devoted to it. And I remember telling my mother that I was going to adopt, and she said she thought this was a terrible idea, and I would be a terrible mother. So I remember thinking, oh, well, I don't know if I would be a terrible mother. I think I would be an all right mother, a good enough mother, as the psychologists say. That's probably, you're probably good enough if you're good enough. It's difficult being a mother. And so I went ahead and did it. But it was really following my gut. It really intellectually, I think if I had thought about it very carefully, I would have been thinking the way my mother was thinking. Instead, I was feeling with my whole body. I just knew it was something I wanted to do. I found out I wasn't fertile when I was quite young, never made a decision not to have a child. And then suddenly I just wanted to adopt. So now I'm 74, my daughter is 28. I always thought, what will it be like if I'm so old and my daughter is so young? And as it turns out, we're very close. We have a beautiful relationship. And that gut feeling was a very generative, important part of my life. So I'm really glad that I'm working on this chakra of intuition. The more I think about it, the more I think it's an important part of everyday life that we don't often explore. And there, of course, is a logic to intuition. It's not necessarily illogical at all. Intuition has a wisdom to it. Thus, the owl. I'm not really that wise, but I love the idea of this owl. Anyway, so let's go back to our yoga. That's the sort of first exploration of the intuitive. And we're going to just do a couple of poses that are close to the ground. We'll do some others that are not so later. So we're just going to do, here we're going to do we'll just do a plank here. So I'm just pressing my hands to the ground. And I'm actually quite warm. So I'm going to take off have a costume change here. I'm wearing sort of violet because that is the color of this chakra. So we're pressing our hands into the ground, and I'm in tabletop here. And I'm just going to come back, turn my toes under and come back. And I'm just going to go into downward dog for a moment and just stretch myself out here. And here we are in an inversion where an inversion of sorts, a partial inversion here. And where my head is below my heart. And inversions are connected to, as postures, are connected to this chakra, the sixth chakra. And I'm just pressing my hands into the ground. And then I'm trying to rotate my upper arms out. So I'll just do some circles here. Just really feeling that rotation while I am bending my knees and stretching my tailbone up to the ceiling, and then stretching my heels down to the ground and feeling that I am maybe a little bit more elongated here. And I'm just breathing here. I'm feeling that once again, and that my pelvis and my xiphoid process at the base of my sternum are in line, so that there's a little bit of a contraction, a 2 out of 10 contraction in the core, in the torso below the navel. Good. Now we're just going to come forward into plank, and you might want to put your knees down if that's too much. And here we're going to put our hands in. We're going to just put our hands here in a prayer position. So we have our thumbs up. Our elbows are the width of our shoulders, and we're pressing our forearms into the ground. And now you can stay here if you like, if this is enough for you, or you can come up into a plank here, and you can imagine that the third eye, that place between your brows, and your thumbs are on the same, are basically interconnected here. We're pressing here into our forearms. And this is a very demanding pose, so do put your knees down whenever you like. And I'm not going to stay here too long. But I am just imagining there's a lot of power in this pose, a lot of energy in my forearms that are holding me up, and my thumbs are pointing directly at my third eye, and I'm really working to imagine that there is like an intuitive light lighting up that part of my body. Good. And now we can just put our knees down, and we'll come back here into a child's pose. And I'm stretching my arms out in front of me, and to release them, I'm putting my forehead on the floor. If that is not available to you, you could take a block and put it underneath your forehead. And you can, of course, put some support behind you if you like. If you're up like this, you could put blankets here. You could make sure that you are comfortable in this pose. And we're just going to stretch our arms out towards the left side of our body. And we're stretching the right arm, the right hand up, and the right hip back. So it's a lovely side body stretch, and we're breathing into that side body. And now we're going to come back to the other side, and we are going to be stretching that hand up and stretching that hip back. And now we're going to come back into the center and stretch back. Very nice. So let's come up, and we will return to our writing and our exploration of our writing and this chakra. The literal meaning of this chakra is command, and somewhere I have a definition of it. Yeah, it's connected to light. It has a particular energy, and I've lost the actual etymological definition of it, but you could, oh, here it is. Here it is. It is the it is related to command, and if you have an unbalanced Ajna chakra, then you have difficulty making decisions, and you're disconnected from your own inner wisdom. If you have a balanced Ajna chakra, you have enhanced intuition and a greater sense of self-understanding and a deeper connection to yourself. So the notion of self-awareness and self-reflection is a really important one in everyday living. And of course, since we're also connected to our machines, I'm very grateful that we have Zoom so that we can share our yoga practices. But, you know, there's so much research now on the way our thought processes are interrupted by our digital notifications, et cetera, et cetera. So it's good to take a little bit of time journaling. Maybe you could say for the next week, take 10 minutes every day and just sit with yourself and just see what comes up. And that's one of the important things about writing and intuition is it can start from literally nothing. I have worked as a writer for, I don't know, many, many years. I think I went to a Women in Words workshop in 1983 when I was in my early 30s. And it really opened my eyes. I really had a hard time. It was in a convent, and it was with these wonderful lesbian writers, Gail Scott and Daphne Marlatt. Daphne is a Vancouver poet, and Gail is a wonderful Montreal nonfiction writer. And they were so smart and so fantastic. And I was so paralyzed that I remember they said to me, just go into your room and just start to write. Like, I had an old K-Pro computer that weighed about 4,000 pounds. It was one of the first portables. It was like a big suitcase. And I remember typing on my computer, and they said, just let your fingers move across the keyboard. And so I just remember playing the keyboard like a piano. And I did that for quite a long time until I had a page of gibberish, and then something came to me. So I think when we're thinking about writing, we have to be able to access parts of ourselves that are all about secrecy, remaining hidden. They're about lacking confidence. They're about feeling we have nothing to say. They're about a lot of negativity that sort of come to us when we're writing often. And so the process of writing Ajna and intuition is trusting that somewhere in there is that wise woman or wise man, that area of our being that offers us some way of accessing what is hidden, what is secreted, even from us, what is covered over, what we resist. So I'll just say, I'm not going to give you a prompt right now. I'm just going to encourage you to just put your pen down on the piece of paper or your hands on the keyboard, if that's where you are, and just see what comes. So, you know, you could start writing anything. So, and you could maybe even close your eyes. So I'm going to close my eyes and see what happens if I start to write. And I'm not really going to direct my writing in any particular way. I'm just going to see what happens when I just let it flow. And first of all, I'm going to start scribbling, just scribbling with my pen, going across the page. It's very low stakes writing. So it's just squiggly lines. And then I'm going to close my eyes and I'm just going to see what happens if I just keep scribbling for a little while. What is it that comes to mind? And I'm going to breathe here. I'm going to inhale and exhale. And I'm going to inhale and exhale. Inhale and exhale. Now, if you want to pause and keep on writing, you go right ahead and do that. I'm going to just interrupt our writing. And if you want to have a write, you could return to what you're writing after the class as well. Or uh, I'm just going to speak to you about my experience because it's not an extraordinary experience. It's what comes out of our interconnected um, time together. So scribble, 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 many scribbles. And then what came to my mind was, how do I access my intuition? Because of course that's what we're doing. Just by scribbling, we're trying to imagine what it would mean to tap into that intuition potentially. So how do I access my intuition? So, this might be something you explore. You would have different experiences. So I have to relax. I have to let go. I have to abandon plans. I have to procrastinate without guilt. I have to find myself waylaid. I have to find myself on the road allowance, not in the middle of the road. I have to change course. I have to break rules. Sometimes, following my intuition, I have to disappoint others. I have to follow a promise I once abandoned, perhaps. I have to feel adrift. I find myself filled with possibility. And I have to move beyond fear of failure, fear of embarrassment, fear of many, many things, fear of self disclosure. So, writing with intuition is filled with promise and a brave act, I would say. All right. So, we're going to go into our next pose. And it's going to be connected to the plank that we did the last time. We're getting a lot of use out of our upper arms. And I have been strength training, as you can see from my equipment. I started my strength training at 73, and I have to recommend it as a complement to yoga. It does really help my yoga practice, and my yoga practice certainly helps my strength training. I wouldn't want to do one or the other because I would be overburdened with muscles just doing strength training. But I do find that, especially since women lose 1/3 of their muscle mass after menopause. So it's basically downhill after menopause with muscles. So it's a good thing to really work to build them up. And I do build a lot of muscle doing my yoga, but this, of course, is more focused in all kinds of different areas of the body, and it does enhance my practice and my well-being and my sense of myself. I've never, I do like being a very strong old woman. It's really reassuring. Okay, now, so here we go. This time, we're going to go into dolphin pose. So we could start here. We can start in our tabletop. And I like going into downward dog like this because I find I get a better movement. I turn my toes under. This is very good. This is Pat's toe squat. And we could come back into just a real toe squat if we wanted to for a moment. It's always a good thing to do. Just to help us make sure that our toes are supple in order to enhance our balance. All right, now we'll come forward into tabletop, and then we're going to lift our knees up and press our toes down. Now we're going to have to walk forward here. And I'm just in plank here. And I'm just going to stay here for a minute, and I'm going to put my knees down, and then I'm going to make a triangle with my hands, and I'm going to clasp my hands and leave my thumb up here. My elbows are below my shoulders, and I'm just going to tuck my toes under, lift up into dolphin pose. And here it is. It's a demanding pose also. And it requires strength in your arms. And I'm pressing back, and I'm going to go forward and touch my third eye. And then I'm going to come back again. And I'm going to go back and forth 5 times. And all the time I'm trying to breathe. So I'm exhaling, and I'm inhaling, and I'm exhaling, and I'm inhaling, and I'm exhaling, and I'm inhaling. Now, if this is too much for you, just put your knees down, and you'll just have a different experience. But this is a perfectly acceptable process because you're opening your shoulders here. But I'm going to do the whole thing. Here we go. This is demanding. All right, now I'm going to put my knees down. I'm going to come back into a very welcome child's pose. I'm stretching my fingers out again, and this is helping me open my shoulders. I'm going to come up into puppy pose because my arms are quite tense. So my hips are above my knees, stretching my hands out, stretching my fingers, feeling my palms of my hands are like suction cups, and I'm just dropping my shoulders down. And this is a really lovely, expansive, expanding your shoulders. You can put your hands on blocks, of course. You could do this if you were standing up in the kitchen. You could just put your hands on the kitchen counter and walk back. And and just allow your armpits to open. So you could do this in your everyday life. Many of these poses are not necessarily suited only to the mat. And if we're thinking about functional movement, we really want to be able to open out our shoulders, have very mobile shoulders, mobile hips. And we can do a lot of these poses just in our everyday life. All right, so now I'm going to lift up. I'm going to walk my hands back, and I'm going to clasp my hands behind me and open up my chest because it feels good. It feels very good to do that after the movement of our shoulders the other way. And I'm going to open my arms out, clasp my fingers the other way, and do the same thing, opening up my shoulders, feeling that my chest is open. I can breathe into my front body and exhale. Good. All right, we're going to come back to a seated pose, and let's try a seated pose now. You could sit in easy pose. I always sit with one foot. So you try and change your feet so they're different foot is in front. And then you can also sit in fire log pose, which is this, with your feet flexed and one knee over top of your foot, the other foot over top of the knee. Or you could sit in cow face pose, which is drawing one leg back and then the other, and trying to manifest your one knee on top of the other. It's tricky. It's taken me quite a long time, and it's not perfect. It is what it is. And I'm trying to feel and can really settle into this pose, but it is not an easy pose. So you have a choice of poses. You sit how you want to sit. And in this pose, I'm going to just take my arms out. I'm going to stretch my fingers because I have a little arthritis, and it doesn't hurt anyone to play the piano with their fingers, especially if we're working on a keyboard. And then I'm going to cross my arms one over the other. I'm going to take, if this is my, this would be, say this is my left knee above, I'm going to take my left arm below, I'm going to swing it around and then swing it up. So I have my eagle arms. Now, if that's too much for you, you can just take your one arm and draw this other arm in. So you're drawing that arm in. So you decide what works for you. And here, with eagle arms and these legs in cow face pose, I'm going to take my thumb and put it in my third eye. Now, this is a little bit of an affectation, but since we're really trying to think about this third eye intuition, and the chakras are in Hindu and yogic teaching actual energy centers. And so we can imagine that these energy centers could be enacted, or enlivened by touch. So that's why I'm going to touch this space. Additionally, if we're skeptical of the concept of energy centers, we can just imagine that these are metaphors, and that by touching these places, we are activating our imagination to explore the idea of clarity of thought that comes through intuition and the gut feeling, and the kind of knowledge that arrives in our lives through the test of time. Good. Now I'm going to open my arms out again, And then I'm going to come back, change my legs. Well, let's just stretch them out for a minute because it's quite a good. Let's do a little twist here, just to keep our body working properly. Good. And let's just stretch, walk out briefly. Put our, come however far you can. You could grab your toes. You could stretch out a little and come back. And now we're going to just do with the other leg on top. Now, the problem with our bodies is they're human and they're not machines, and we're asymmetrical. So you'll find that on one side, the body works a certain way, and on the other, it works entirely differently. So you might find this almost impossible on one side or another. And you do you. You can go back to fire log. You could sit in easy pose. You could be stretching out on the mat if you feel like it right now. All right, so we're going to just open our arms out. I'm going to play piano here with my fingers again. And then, since this is it would be your right leg up, I'm going to take my right arm under, and I'm just going to fling them around and come up into what's eagle arms. And I'm going to touch my third eye once again with my thumb. And I'm just breathing, especially into my back body, which is really open here. And I'm exploring just imaginatively what it would be like to have clarity on this very moment. We're living in difficult times, and in difficult times we need tenderness. So how might we experience this present moment with tenderness? Tenderness to ourselves and tenderness to others. And now I'm opening up my arms again, and I'm pressing my hands back. I'm going to stretch my legs out in front of me, and I'm going to lift my chest up again. And I'm pointing my toes, pressing out through my heels, pointing my toes, pressing out through my heels, and I'm rotating my wrists and my ankles and my elbows, and I'm dropping my head from side to side. Good. All right. So we have a few moments to write. So I'm just going to leave it quite open. Maybe one of the things Pat Murata Linfoot has developed this very useful chart for all the chakras, which I really love. And she writes that there's an emotional spectrum for each chakra, and others talk about this. And the emotional spectrum she sees with Ajna, I think it's pronounced in. I think if you're in, when I Googled how do you pronounce Ajna, the Sanskrit would be Agna Chakra, but many people pronounce it Ajna. So the emotional spectrum for Agna or Ajna is from illusion to insight. So maybe that's one of the things we could explore in writing, just very briefly. Once upon a time, the illusion was X, and then I had an insight and Y. So let's just write about, just explore briefly. And we can, of course, do this after the class. You can pause right now and you can spend 10, 15 minutes writing. when have I experienced that movement from illusion to insight? And what has that brought me? And what are the illusions I'm living with right now? Obviously, this is a very long writing spell. So you might, I'm asking you very big questions. So what kind of illusions am I living under now? And just in reflecting, because the process of this chakra is reflection, self-reflection, in order to see clearly and to develop self-awareness. So what kind of illusions am I living right now that I might want to explore in order to develop more clarity, in order to come to more pragmatic insight? Okay, so that's the movement. Illusion to insight. So those are many questions. You go right ahead and write. All right, since we don't have that much time left, I'm going to, and I want us to have an opportunity to really have a good shavasana at the end, at least for a few moments. I'm going to interrupt, but this is something that you can explore. I have to say, I'll just, I'm not sure what the effect of me telling you what I'm writing is, but I'll just tell you what, how this exploration of Ajna is very helpful for me. That movement from illusion to insight, for me, is, I think I'm going to live forever. Like, I just have that sense I'm going to live forever. And I just had a long conversation with my mother today, who's suffering from advanced Alzheimer's, and speaks in words and in numbers. And I think she's reached a point where her mental capacity is such that she doesn't have access to language. So when she doesn't have a word, she'll stop counting. And I think it gives her a sense of comfort that she can actually still count, even if her speech is so interrupted. Now, I'm not necessarily going to get Alzheimer's, but as an older woman, with my mother's 96, I'm 74, I'm very conscious in talking to her today, although I really ignore this almost every day, that that I have finite time ahead of me, and that it's important for me at this point in my life to really plot out what I want to contribute to the world at this point, because the future is truncated, So that was my insight in thinking about that movement from illusion to insight. And you will have your own experience depending on who you are, what stage of life you're at. But I do think exploring this chakra can be really powerful and quite profound. I'm quite moved by this. And I plan on plotting out my life in a more concentrated fashion. So we're going to do our last pose. And because inversions are part of the asana, the shapes and poses that are connected to this sixth chakra, that is elevating our heart above our elevating ourselves above our eye. I recommend that if you have it in your wheelhouse to do a shoulder stand or a headstand or a handstand, and you can do it safely, you could go into that right now. I have a compromised neck, so I can't do that. So I'm just going to go with my legs up the wall. And I'm going to put a block underneath my sacrum to raise my hips up. And I'm going to put a blanket behind my head at the base of where the bony part is, right here, base of my skull. I'm going to put the blanket here in order to raise my forehead up above my neck, above my chin rather. And it also, what that does too, it elongates the neck. It's very good for your neck. It's a very lovely thing to do. So I'm just going to put my feet up here because I happen to have an handy post. You could get a blanket, and you can just get a block. I have a block here. If you don't have a block, you don't really need a block, but it's a useful thing to have. And I'm going to roll onto the block. So you sit sideways, and then I'm just kind of rolling onto the block. This is not very comfortable, actually, but anyway, such is life. And then I'm going to come down and put my feet up here. And I'm wiggling, squiggling to get my sacrum on the block properly. And then I'm grabbing this, and I'm putting it here. Now, if this doesn't work for you, you could just stretch out beside your couch and put your legs on the chair. So I'm just going to stay like this with my sacrum up slightly. If this is uncomfortable, don't do it. And I'm drawing my shoulder. I'm opening my shoulders. I'm drawing my shoulder blades down my back, and I have my palms up. You could have a weight of some kind in your hands if you like, or you could just stretch out like this. Now, if this is uncomfortable, just take the block out. It is a bit uncomfortable, actually. I don't really like it, so I'm not going to do that. I think this is much better. But if you're in the center of the room, a block is very good. You can put the block under your sacrum and stick your feet up in the center of the room, and it feels really very nice. Here it is quite lovely. And I'm just breathing here. And this is an opportunity for us to reflect on just the idea of letting go, of finding that sense of ease and release to allow us to access parts of ourselves that we tend to ignore or that we actively repress. So let's just feel that we are at ease, that we are in a beautiful place that pleases us, that we recognize as a kind of home, in that we belong in that place and we are comforted in that place. And we can find a place of tenderness in that place. I'm just putting my hands on my low ribs so that I'm breathing into my belly and my low ribs and my chest. And then I'm exhaling. I have very big breaths here. And I'll let you find your own rhythm. But you can feel that there is an expansiveness inside of you that corresponds to that sense of expansiveness that comes when we let go, when we're able to explore the hidden. And I'll read a short piece by Pema Chodron from The Places That Scare You, a guide to fearlessness in difficult times. Because intuition often introduces us to difficult choices or daring choices or surprising choices. So here is Pema Chodron. Anxiety, heartbreak, and tenderness mark the in-between state. It's the kind of place we usually want to avoid. The challenge is to stay in the middle rather than buy into struggle and complaint. The challenge is to let it soften us rather than make us more rigid and afraid. Becoming intimate with the queasy feeling of being in the middle of nowhere only makes our hearts more tender. When we are brave enough to stay in the middle, compassion arises spontaneously. By not knowing, not hoping to know, and not acting like we know what's happening, we begin to access our inner strength. So with that, you might want to stretch out. You can, if you're at the wall, you can draw your knees into your chest and roll onto your side. If you're on the floor, stretched out in Shavasana, you can stretch your fingers and your toes. You can stretch one side of your body and then the other. And then you can draw your knees into your chest and roll onto your side and sit up. And I will simply thank you for joining me today. I'm at Studio B, and I am very grateful for the teachings I have learned here and for the opportunity to teach here. Thank you, thank you, thank you. The teacher and the student in me sees and honors the teacher and the student in you. And the teacher and the student in me sees the light in you. Deep bows.